Famous polyglot mocks Maid's daughter's bad accent, goes mute as she speaks 11 languages fluently. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Maya had always been different. Not because of how she looked or where she came from, but because of what she carried inside. Growing up in a small town in the United States, Maya was the daughter of a maid who worked tirelessly to provide for her family. She often found herself in places where people stared at her appearance, her accent, her otherness. Despite the harsh judgments she faced, Maya carried a quiet, unspoken confidence that no one could understand, until that day. Maximilian was a well-known polyglot, famous for speaking over 25 languages fluently. His reputation was one of grandeur, a man who could dazzle anyone with his words and charm. He had attended high-profile events, spoken at international conferences, and was admired by many for his intellectual prowess. He was, by all accounts, a genius when it came to languages. But that afternoon, he found himself in a scenario that would soon challenge everything he thought he knew. Maximilian was invited to a lavish party at the mansion of a wealthy CEO, where he would be the guest of honor. The event was filled with high-profile individuals, and Maya, working as a maid at the mansion, was tasked with serving drinks and food. She had been working there for months, quietly moving through the crowd, unnoticed by the rich and powerful who occupied the rooms. But that day, something was different. As the evening wore on, Maximilian made his way to the living room, where Maya happened to be passing by, carrying a tray of appetizers. He glanced at her briefly, then scoffed at the thick accent in her voice when she greeted him. "I don't understand how someone like you could have such a bad accent," Maximilian remarked loudly, his voice laced with condescension. His words stung, not just because of the insult, but because of the way he said them. Like he was above her, like she was a mere servant who didn't deserve to speak to him at all. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she didn't react. Instead, she smiled politely and continued on her way. But inside, something shifted. She had always been told her accent was a flaw, something to hide, something to change. But she knew the truth. Her accent didn't define her, nor did it limit her potential. Maximilian's words were just noise. As the evening continued, Maximilian found himself mingling with guests, talking about his adventures in the world of languages. He boasted about how he could speak 11 languages fluently, each with the precision of a native speaker. His arrogance grew with each story he told, as he looked down on everyone around him, believing no one could surpass his knowledge or intellect. But Maya was no longer just the maid in the background. Maya had learned to speak 11 languages too, not by formal training, but by her own quiet dedication. She had spent countless nights listening to language tapes, practicing through books, and immersing herself in online courses. Her mother may have been a maid, but Maya was no ordinary girl. She was a force waiting to be recognized. With each word Maximilian spoke, Maya stood there silently, absorbing his boastful comments. And then, when the moment came, she walked up to him. No one expected what would happen next. Without a word, Maya began to speak. First, it was Spanish, flawlessly. Then French, Italian, German, Russian, Mandarin, Arabic, and several others, each language flowing from her lips effortlessly. The room went silent. Maximilian's confident smirk faltered as he realized what was happening. The more languages she spoke, the more his arrogance shriveled. He went mute, stunned into silence, as he stood there, completely outmatched. Maya's voice rang out in perfect fluency, speaking not just the languages Maximilian had claimed as his domain, but also others he had never dared to learn. The truth was undeniable. Maya was not just a maid's daughter. She was a genius in her own right. And in that moment, Maximilian realized something crucial. Intelligence and talent could never be measured by someone's accent, appearance, or background. As the room stood in awe, Maximilian had no choice but to face the truth. Maya had just taught him the most valuable lesson of all, that true brilliance knows no boundaries. Her accent, once a source of mockery, now stood as a symbol of her incredible strength and intellect. Maximilian, the polyglot, was the one left speechless. What do you think of Maya's extraordinary talent? If you believe intelligence transcends all boundaries, don't forget to hit that like button and share this inspiring story with others. As the evening unfolded, the room remained in a stunned silence, the weight of Maya's revelation hanging in the air. Maximilian stood frozen, his pride and arrogance shattered, as the guests exchanged puzzled glances. Maya had effortlessly outdone him, not just in languages, but in grace, intelligence, and strength. The polyglot, once the king of linguistic prowess, now found himself humbled by a maid's daughter, a girl who had been dismissed by so many, yet possessed an intellect that was unparalleled. The guests, once indifferent to her presence, now looked at Maya with newfound respect, their eyes wide with admiration. But Maya didn't let the silence linger. With a calm smile, she placed the last glass on her tray and turned to walk away. She knew exactly what she had just done. This wasn't about proving herself to them. This was about reclaiming the power she had always known was within her. As she made her way to the service entrance, she felt a shift in the energy of the room. The chatter resumed, but it was different now. People were speaking in hushed tones, their voices filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. In the distance, she heard Maximilian's voice, but it was soft, apologetic, as he attempted to explain his behavior to the guests who had gathered around him. The atmosphere had changed, and for the first time, Maya felt the sting of years of judgment start to fade. She had been underestimated, but now, in this grand house full of powerful people, she was no longer invisible. As she walked through the kitchen, the staff greeted her with knowing glances. They had all witnessed the moment, the turning point when the quiet girl who served them had silenced the loudest voice in the room. Maya didn't acknowledge their stares, but she felt a sense of pride that she hadn't known before. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who could stand tall, unafraid, in any room. That night, as Maya walked home through the dimly lit streets of the city, she reflected on what had just happened. She had always believed in herself, but until now, she had never shown the world what she was truly capable of. The years of being dismissed, of being told that she wasn't enough, had all led to this moment. She had faced it with dignity, with quiet confidence, and with the knowledge that she had something no one could take away, her mind. As she reached her apartment, Maya unlocked the door and stepped inside. Her mother was sitting at the kitchen table, her tired eyes lighting up as she saw her daughter. "How was work, honey?" she asked, her voice full of warmth. Maya smiled and took a seat across from her. "It was fine," she replied softly, her voice calm. Her mother raised an eyebrow, sensing that there was more to the story. "What happened?" she asked, concern creeping into her tone. Maya paused for a moment, letting the silence hang between them. She could feel the weight of what she had just done, the shift in the way she would be seen from now on. "I spoke today," Maya said, her voice quiet but steady, "and I think I might have surprised some people." Her mother's expression softened, and she reached across the table, taking her daughter's hand in hers. "I've always known you had it in you, Maya," she said, her voice full of pride. "You're more than just the girl who works at that mansion. You've always been someone special." Maya looked at her mother, her heart swelling with emotion. She had spent so many years trying to prove her worth, not just to the world, but to herself. But now, in this small apartment with her mother, she finally realized something. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She was enough, and the world would soon see that. The next day, Maximilian arrived at the mansion with a different attitude. He had spent the night reflecting on what had happened, on the humility Maya had shown him. He had spent years as the center of attention, basking in his intellectual superiority, but Maya's quiet strength had completely dismantled that image. As he entered the house, he noticed the shift in the way the staff treated him. They no longer viewed him as an untouchable genius. They had seen him falter, seen his pride crumble in front of them. Maximilian's eyes scanned the room until he saw her, Maya. She was standing in the corner, carrying a tray of drinks, just as she had the night before. But now, there was something different about her. She stood taller, more confident, as though the weight of the world had lifted from her shoulders. Maximilian hesitated for a moment before approaching her. As he walked toward her, Maya noticed him. He stood in front of her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, They both just stared at each other, the tension from the night before still hanging between them. Finally, Maximilian spoke. I owe you an apology, he said, his voice sincere. I was wrong to mock you. I underestimated you, and I should have never done that. Maya looked at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. It's okay, she said softly. I know what you think of me, but that doesn't define who I am. Maximilian nodded, understanding what she meant. He had seen her as just another servant, but now he saw her for who she truly was, a brilliant, strong young woman who had earned her place in this world, regardless of what others thought of her. You're right, he said quietly. You deserve better than how I treated you. Maya didn't respond, but her eyes met his with a sense of quiet power. She had nothing to prove to him or anyone else. She had already won, and that was all that mattered. In the days that followed, Maya found herself at the center of a whirlwind. The guests at the party had been talking about her, whispering behind her back, and their opinions were no longer filled with judgment, but respect. It was a feeling she wasn't used to, but it felt good. However, the most significant change came from Maximilian. Every time their paths crossed, he would nod at her, his eyes now filled with admiration instead of condescension. Maya didn't let it get to her head, though. She knew that this was just a fleeting moment in time. The real challenge was finding her place in the world beyond the mansion's walls. For the first time in her life, she felt like she wasn't just existing, but truly living. The world had always seemed like a place where people, like her, people from the margins, could only watch from the sidelines. But now, she had a seat at the table. She had earned it. Maya had always been a diligent student, even when her life seemed to be spiraling in a different direction. She was still young, but she had dreams of one day becoming someone who could use her knowledge to make a real difference in the world. A polyglot, a linguist, a scholar. Those were the labels she now wore proudly. But as time passed, she realized that the life she had been living wasn't enough. She didn't want to remain a maid or a servant forever. She wanted more. Maximilian had seen her potential, and now she had to take matters into her own hands. It was time to find a way out of the small world she had been trapped in. She began researching universities, looking for scholarships, opportunities to learn more, to be more. Her mother noticed the shift in Maya's behavior, the quiet determination that had replaced the usual uncertainty. You're planning something, aren't you? Her mother asked one evening as they sat at the kitchen table, a pot of stew simmering on the stove. Maya looked up at her mother, her eyes soft, but filled with resolve. I don't want to just stay here, Mom. I want to be someone who makes a difference, someone who can do more than just work at this house. I want to use what I've learned to help others. Her mother smiled gently, her eyes full of pride. I've always known you were destined for something great, Maya. You've never been just a maid's daughter. You've always been more. That conversation sparked a fire in Maya's heart. She had always known her worth, but hearing her mother's words solidified her resolve. She wasn't going to let the world define her. She would define herself. She reached out to colleges, applied for scholarships, and started to build a future for herself outside the confines of the mansion. Maximilian, who had once mocked her accent and dismissed her as just another maid, now found himself impressed by her drive and ambition. One day, he approached her as she was leaving for work. Maya, he called out, and she turned to face him. I've been thinking about what you said, and I wanted to offer you something. Maya raised an eyebrow, curious. What do you mean? I know you're looking to go to school, and I might be able to help, Maximilian said, his tone sincere. I've seen your potential, and I believe you deserve to go further than this. If you want, I can help you get into a good university. I can write you a letter of recommendation, help with the financial side of things. Maya stared at him, a mix of disbelief and gratitude filling her. She had never expected anything like this from him. She had never imagined that the man who once humiliated her would be the one to offer her a chance at a new life. I don't know what to say, she replied softly. Maximilian smiled, a rare, genuine smile. Say yes. I'm not offering this because I owe you something. I'm offering it because you've earned it. You deserve it. Maya felt a lump form in her throat. This wasn't just about education, it was about validation. She had worked her whole life to prove herself, and now, for the first time, someone saw her for who she truly was. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll take you up on that. With Maximilian's help, Maya's future began to take shape. She applied to several universities, each more prestigious than the last, and began to make plans to leave the mansion behind. The woman who had once been the object of mockery was now on her way to becoming a scholar, a woman of influence, someone who could change the world. But as Maya prepared to leave, she couldn't help but feel conflicted. The mansion had been her home for so long, and the people there, especially her mother, had been a constant source of support. Yet, the world beyond the mansion's walls was waiting for her, and she knew that it was time to embrace her destiny. On the day she left, her mother gave her a hug, holding her tight as if she never wanted to let go. "You're going to do great things, Maya," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I've always believed in you, and I always will." Maya hugged her back, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll make you proud, Mom. I promise." And with that, Maya stepped into the world, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. She had already proved that she could overcome anything. Now, it was time to show the world what she was capable of. Maya's first day at the university was a whirlwind of emotions. She had never imagined that this moment would come, stepping onto a prestigious campus as a student, not as a maid's daughter, but as someone who belonged. She had arrived early, the early morning air crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. As she walked past the grand buildings, she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. This was it, the beginning of a new chapter. She was no longer trapped in the shadows. Her first class was a lecture on linguistics, a subject she had always dreamed of studying in depth. She had worked so hard to get here, mastering multiple languages on her own, never knowing if she'd ever have the opportunity to study them properly. The lecture hall was filled with students, most of them coming from prestigious backgrounds. But as Maya found her seat, she felt like she belonged. She took out her notebook, ready to take notes. But as the professor started speaking, she couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. The professor's words were so familiar, yet hearing them in this setting made them feel even more significant. Maya felt the weight of her journey, the long nights spent studying, the sacrifices her mother made, the moments of self-doubt. All of it had led to this moment. And it wasn't just a dream anymore. It was real. As the class continued, Maya absorbed every word, her eyes focused on the professor, her mind fully engaged. She had spent so much of her life feeling invisible, but here, in this classroom, she was being recognized for the first time for her intelligence, her passion, and her dedication. After the lecture ended, Maya stepped out of the room, her mind buzzing with excitement. She had been exposed to so many new ideas, and she was eager to dive deeper into the subject. But as she walked through the campus, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a message from Maximilian. It read, "I hope your first day went well. Just remember, you are capable of amazing things. Keep pushing yourself." Maya smiled. Maximilian had kept his word and helped her get into the university, but more importantly, he had believed in her when no one else did. She was grateful for his support, but it wasn't his belief that drove her, it was her own. Maya had always known her worth. It was just that now, the world was finally beginning to see it too. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of classes, assignments, and new experiences. Maya immersed herself in her studies, especially in linguistics, where she excelled beyond her professor's expectations. Her classmates, who had once seemed so out of reach, now came to her for help with their language assignments. She was no longer just the shy girl in the corner. She had become a source of knowledge and inspiration. Her journey was not easy, though. There were moments when doubt crept in, when she wondered if she truly belonged here. There were still times when she would walk through the halls and feel the sting of old memories, of being dismissed and overlooked. But every time those feelings came, Maya pushed them aside. She had a purpose now. She had a future. As the semester progressed, Maya found herself connecting with a group of students who shared her passion for languages. They were diverse, coming from all walks of life, and they quickly recognized her talent and determination. One of them, Sarah, a fellow linguistics major, became her closest friend. Sarah was from a wealthy family, the complete opposite of Maya in many ways, but they bonded over their love for language and their shared desire to make a difference in the world. One afternoon, after a long day of studying, Sarah and Maya sat together in the campus library, surrounded by books and notes. "You know," Sarah said, breaking the silence, "you're amazing, Maya. The way you pick up languages so effortlessly. It's like you have this innate ability." Maya smiled, but the compliment didn't surprise her. She had always known that she was capable of greatness, but hearing it from someone who wasn't already in her corner was different. It felt validating. I've had to work hard for it, Maya replied. I didn't grow up with the same opportunities as most people, but I've always believed that if I put my mind to something, I can achieve it. Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with admiration. You know, I think you're going to do something incredible with your life. You're going to change the world. Maya's heart swelled with gratitude. It wasn't just the university that had changed her. It was the people she had met along the way. People who saw her, who valued her not for where she came from, but for what she could bring to the table. As the semester came to a close, Maya found herself standing at a crossroads. She had accomplished so much, but there was still so much more she wanted to do. She wanted to give back, to use her knowledge to help others, just as Maximilian had helped her. She knew that her journey wasn't just about her own success. It was about lifting others up along the way. The next few years at the university would be challenging, but Maya was ready. She was no longer the shy, invisible girl she once was. She was Maya, a young woman with a bright future, and she was just getting started. Maya's second semester was a transformative experience. As she continued her studies, her passion for linguistics deepened, and her network within the academic community grew. No longer the shy girl who was pushed to the background, she now stood out as one of the brightest students in her class. Her professors, who had once doubted her based on her humble beginnings, now saw her as an intellectual force, someone who could rival even the best in the field. Maya's hard work was paying off, but she wasn't satisfied just being a top student. She had big dreams. She wanted to change the world, to use her knowledge of languages to bridge gaps between cultures and bring people together. One day, after a particularly challenging lecture on language preservation, Maya sat in the student lounge with Sarah, her closest friend at the university. Sarah had been Maya's support system since their first semester together, and their bond had only grown stronger over time. Maya, have you thought about what you want to do after graduation? Sarah asked, her eyes full of curiosity. Maya looked up from her notebook, her mind already racing with possibilities. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, she said, her voice steady with determination. I want to use what I've learned to help preserve endangered languages. There are so many languages out there that are dying, and I believe I can make a difference by documenting them, teaching them, and raising awareness about their importance. Sarah smiled, clearly impressed. That sounds amazing, Maya. You're going to make a real impact. Maya's heart swelled with pride. She had always known that her journey was bigger than herself. She had the power to inspire change, to help people understand one another across language barriers. But she also knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead would be filled with obstacles, but she was ready to face them head-on. As the months passed, Maya's focus remained unwavering. She worked tirelessly on her projects, compiling research on endangered languages and collaborating with organizations dedicated to language preservation. Her name began to circulate in academic circles, and soon, she was invited to speak at conferences, sharing her research with experts in the field. One of these conferences was in New York City, and it marked a turning point in Maya's life. Maximilian, who had continued to mentor her, invited her to the event, knowing it would be a great opportunity for her. It was a moment of validation, one that would bring her even closer to her dream. As she prepared to speak at the conference, Maya felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had worked hard to get here, but this was the first time she would be presenting her work to such a large audience. The night before her presentation, she sat in her hotel room, practicing her speech, when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Maximilian. Maya, I'm proud of everything you've accomplished. You've worked hard for this moment, and tomorrow is your time to shine. Just remember, you belong here. Maya smiled at the words, feeling the weight of his support. She had come so far, and tomorrow, she would prove that to the world. The next day, the conference hall was packed. Academics, researchers, and professionals from around the world gathered to hear the latest research on language preservation. Maya sat at the front of the room, waiting for her turn to speak. When her name was called, she stood up, her heart pounding with anticipation. As she walked to the podium, she took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. She looked out at the audience, her nerves quickly dissipating as she saw the faces of people who truly cared about the work she was doing. Maya began her presentation with confidence, explaining her research on the importance of preserving endangered languages. She spoke passionately, her words flowing effortlessly as she shared her findings and the significance of language in preserving culture and identity. The room was captivated by her. As she spoke, she could see the shift in the audience's reactions. No longer were they skeptical or dismissive. They were engaged, listening intently to every word she said. Maya had earned their respect, just as she had earned her place at the table. When her presentation ended, the room erupted into applause. Maya felt a rush of pride and relief. She had done it. She had proven to herself and to the world that her voice mattered. After the session, Maya was approached by several prominent scholars and researchers who expressed their admiration for her work. They invited her to collaborate on future projects, offering her opportunities she had only dreamed of. Maximilian found her amidst the crowd, his face beaming with pride. "I knew you could do it, Maya," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. She had set out to change the world, and she was well on her way. Later that evening, as Maya sat in a quiet cafe reflecting on the day, she realized something important. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove herself to others. But in that moment, she realized that she didn't need anyone else's validation. She had already proven everything she needed to prove to herself. She was capable. She was enough. And the world would never see her the same way again. Maya's success at the conference marked the beginning of a new phase in her journey. As she continued to build her reputation in the academic world, opportunities began to flow her way. She was invited to speak at more conferences, collaborate on research projects, and even work with non-profit organizations dedicated to language preservation. However, while her professional life was flourishing, Maya couldn't ignore the personal challenges that still lingered. It was no longer just about proving herself to the world. It was about navigating the complexities of her identity and understanding who she had become. One evening, after a long day of meetings and emails, Maya sat alone in her apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened. She thought about her mother, who had sacrificed so much for her to have a better life, and about Maximilian, who had helped her break through the barriers of her past. Despite all the success and recognition, Maya felt a sense of loneliness creeping in. She had come so far, but there was still a part of her that longed for something more. It was then that she decided to reach out to her mother. "Mom, I think it's time I come home for a visit," Maya said over the phone, her voice soft but resolute. Her mother's voice crackled through the line, filled with excitement. "Oh, sweetheart, I've missed you so much. I've been following everything you've been doing. You're making such a difference." Maya smiled, hearing the pride in her mother's voice. "I've been working hard, but I miss you too. I think it's time I come home and spend some time with you. Maybe it's time for me to reflect on where I'm going next." Her mother's voice softened. "Whatever you need, Maya. Just come home, and we'll figure it out together." Maya made plans to visit her mother in the coming weeks. When the day arrived, she boarded the flight, feeling a mix of excitement and uncertainty. As the plane touched down, Maya was flooded with memories of her childhood, of the small apartment where she had grown up, of the long hours her mother worked to provide for her, and of the dreams they had shared. She had come a long way since those days, but the familiar streets and the comfort of her mother's home reminded her of who she was at her core. When Maya walked through the door of her mother's apartment, she was enveloped in a warm hug. Her mother, though older and a little tired, still had the same gentle smile that had always made Maya feel safe. "It's so good to have you home, my girl," her mother said, holding her tight. Maya felt a lump in her throat as she returned the embrace. It had been too long. As they sat down to catch up, Maya shared her experiences, the conferences, the research, the recognition. Her mother listened intently, her eyes shining with pride. "You've come so far," her mother said softly. "You were always meant for greatness. I've always known it." Maya smiled, but there was a part of her that felt conflicted. "I've done a lot, Mom, but I don't know what's next. I'm grateful for everything I've accomplished, but there's still a part of me that feels like I'm not done yet. I want to do something that really matters, something that makes a difference." Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. "You already are, sweetheart. What you've done already is changing lives. Don't doubt that." Maya looked at her mother, feeling the weight of her words. It was true. She had already made a difference, and yet, she still felt like there was more to be done. That night, after they had finished dinner and her mother had gone to bed, Maya stepped outside onto the balcony. She looked out over the city, the lights twinkling in the distance. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. But she also knew that she wasn't finished yet. There was more she wanted to accomplish, more lives she wanted to touch, more languages to learn, more bridges to build. Maya had always known that her journey wasn't just about her own success. It was about the people she could help along the way. And now, standing on the balcony in the quiet of the night, she realized something important. The world was waiting for her, and she was ready. The next day, as she sat with her mother, Maya made a decision. She would return to the university, finish her studies, and continue her work on language preservation. But this time, she would focus on something even bigger, creating programs to help marginalized communities access education, to teach them the value of language, and to empower them with the tools to communicate across cultures. Her mother smiled when Maya shared her plan. "I'm proud of you, Maya," she said. "You've always known what's important, and I know you'll make it happen." Maya returned to the university, fueled by the love and support of her mother. She dove into her studies, focusing on the practical application of her research. She began collaborating with organizations that worked with underrepresented groups, teaching them not only the importance of language, but also how it could empower them to shape their own futures. As the years passed, Maya's influence continued to grow. She published papers, spoke at international forums, and became a leader in the field of linguistics. But through it all, she remained grounded in her roots, never forgetting where she came from, and always remembering the people who had helped her get there. Maya's journey wasn't just about becoming someone. It was about lifting others up along the way. And as she looked back on everything she had accomplished, she knew that her work had just begun. Maya's impact continued to grow as she worked tirelessly to bridge the gaps between cultures through language and education. With each passing year, her reputation as a leading expert in linguistics and language preservation became undeniable. She had built a network of individuals and organizations dedicated to ensuring that marginalized communities were empowered through language. But even with all her success, Maya knew that her work wasn't done. There was still so much more to achieve. Her journey had been full of challenges, but with each obstacle, she had learned and grown stronger. However, it wasn't just her academic accomplishments that defined her. It was her ability to inspire and uplift those around her. In her final year of graduate school, Maya received an invitation to give a keynote speech at an international linguistics conference in Washington, D.C. The invitation came as a surprise, but it was also a confirmation of the work she had been doing for years. This was her moment to share her vision with a global audience, to inspire others to continue fighting for language preservation and education. As she prepared for the conference, Maya felt the familiar nerves that came before speaking in front of a crowd. But this time, they weren't fueled by self-doubt or fear of judgment. Instead, they were driven by the knowledge that she had something important to say. She had spent her entire life being told what she couldn't do, who she wasn't. But now, she was ready to show the world who she was, someone who could make a difference. When the day of the conference arrived, Maya stood before a packed auditorium, her heart racing with excitement. She could see people from all over the world, professionals and experts in the field of linguistics, all gathered to hear her speak. As the lights dimmed and the microphone was handed to her, Maya took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady and strong. "I'm honored to be here today, to speak to all of you about something that has become my life's work, language preservation and the power of education." For the next hour, Maya captivated the audience with her speech. She spoke about the importance of preserving endangered languages, not just for cultural heritage, but for the future of global communication. She shared her personal journey, the struggles, the triumphs, and the lessons she had learned along the way. But Maya didn't stop there. She challenged her audience to think differently about language. "Language is not just a tool for communication," she said passionately. "It is the key to understanding one another. It is the bridge between cultures, the foundation upon which we can build a more inclusive and connected world. And it is up to us, as educators, linguists, and global citizens, to ensure that these languages are not lost." By the end of her speech, the room was filled with applause. Maya felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over her, but it wasn't about the applause. It was about knowing that she had shared her truth with the world, knowing that her work was making an impact. The conference marked a turning point in Maya's life. She had finally reached the pinnacle of her academic career, but she knew that the real work was just beginning. As she left the conference, she was approached by several people, scholars, philanthropists, and even government officials, who were eager to collaborate with her on projects to help preserve endangered languages and improve access to education. Maya had always believed that one person could make a difference, and now, she had the opportunity to prove it on a global scale. With the support of her colleagues and mentors, Maya began to develop a network of language preservation initiatives that spanned continents. She worked with local communities to document their languages, to teach younger generations the value of their heritage, and to create educational resources that would help preserve these languages for future generations. As the years passed, Maya's influence grew. She was invited to speak at more conferences, write articles for academic journals, and collaborate with governments to create policies that supported language preservation. But despite her success, she never forgot where she came from. Maya continued to support her community, to give back to the people who had helped her along the way. She never let the accolades or the recognition define her. Instead, she focused on the work that mattered most, the work that would leave a lasting legacy for generations to come. One day, years after the Washington, D.C. conference, Maya found herself standing in a small village in South America. She was there to meet with local leaders about a new project she was launching to help preserve an indigenous language that was on the brink of extinction. As she sat with the community, listening to their stories and their hopes for the future, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. She realized that all the struggles, all the sacrifices had led her to this moment, to a place where she was able to make a tangible impact on the world. As the sun set over the village, Maya looked around at the faces of the people she was working with. She had come so far from the shy girl who had once been dismissed because of her accent. She had proved that language was not just a tool for communication, but a force for change. And in that moment, Maya knew that her journey was far from over. There was still so much more to do, and she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Maya had always believed in the power of change, but nothing could have prepared her for the unexpected transformation she would experience next. As her work continued to grow and impact the world, she found herself faced with a new challenge, one that forced her to reflect on her own personal journey. Maya had spent so many years proving herself, pushing past the limitations others had placed on her, and building a career dedicated to language preservation and education. But now, with the weight of success and recognition behind her, she began to wonder what was next. The work she was doing was incredibly important, and it had a profound impact on communities around the world. Yet, Maya began to feel that something was missing. She had focused so much on her professional achievements that she had overlooked the need to truly connect with her own self. She hadn't spent enough time reflecting on her own identity, the very thing that had driven her to succeed in the first place. One evening, as Maya sat alone in her office, reviewing a proposal for a new language education project, she found herself staring at a photo on her desk. It was an old photograph of her and her mother, taken many years ago. Her mother, with her warm smile, had always been her biggest supporter, but Maya hadn't seen her in months. As she looked at the photo, a deep sense of longing washed over her. She missed her mother. She missed the simplicity of their old life, the life where she was just a daughter, not a renowned scholar or a global influencer. The reality of her success had come with sacrifices, and one of those sacrifices had been her time with the people who had helped shape her into who she was. It was in that moment that Maya realized what she needed to do. It was time to reconnect with the people and places that had once grounded her. She knew she had a duty to continue her work, but she also knew that she needed to take a step back and reflect. Maya booked a flight back home, planning a visit to her mother's apartment. It wasn't about taking a break from her career, it was about regaining perspective. When she arrived, her mother was waiting for her at the door with open arms. The moment they embraced, Maya felt a weight lift off her shoulders. There was something about being back home, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of her childhood, that made everything feel right again. As they sat down to dinner that evening, Maya's mother smiled at her with pride. I'm so proud of you, Maya. You've come so far. Maya smiled back, but there was a sadness in her eyes that her mother could see. I've been so focused on my work, Mom. I've neglected what really matters. Her mother looked at her with understanding. You've always been dedicated to helping others, to making the world a better place. But don't forget to take care of yourself along the way. You can't pour from an empty cup. Maya nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. Her mother's words reminded her of the importance of balance. She had always known that she had a purpose, but now she realized that to continue fulfilling that purpose, she needed to take care of her own well-being. The next few days were filled with long conversations, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Maya found solace in the simplicity of being at home, surrounded by the love and support of her family. It gave her the clarity she needed to move forward. As she prepared to return to her work, Maya knew that her journey was far from over. But she also understood that success wasn't just about what she accomplished. It was about finding peace within herself. Maya resumed her work with a renewed sense of purpose. She continued her research, expanding her efforts to preserve endangered languages, and worked with organizations around the world to bring attention to the importance of language education. But she did so with a new perspective. She made sure to prioritize her personal life, to take time for herself, and to nurture the relationships that mattered most. As the years passed, Maya's influence continued to grow. She became a trusted voice in the global conversation about language preservation, and her efforts were recognized by governments and organizations worldwide. Yet, she never lost sight of her roots. She remained grounded in the values that had shaped her: compassion, dedication, and a deep understanding of the power of language. One evening, as Maya sat in her office, surrounded by awards and accolades, she thought back to where it all began. She had come a long way from the quiet girl working in the mansion. She had proven that intelligence and strength came from within, and that no matter where you started, you could always rise. And now, with a career that had touched so many lives, she realized that her journey was not just about personal success. It was about making the world a better place for others. Maya knew that she had achieved something extraordinary, but she also understood that the journey was ongoing. The world would continue to change, and so would she. And with every step forward, she would remain true to herself, using her voice to inspire others to do the same. Maya's journey had come full circle. As the years passed, her work continued to impact the world in ways she had never imagined. She had gone from being a young girl with a dream to a woman who had not only achieved her goals, but surpassed them. Her name had become synonymous with language preservation and education, and her efforts were celebrated around the globe. But it wasn't just her academic achievements that defined her. It was her heart, her drive to make the world a better place, and the legacy she had built along the way. Maya was now at a point where she could look back at her life and see how far she had come. From the days when she had been mocked for her accent, to standing in front of world leaders and experts, advocating for the preservation of languages, Maya had proven that no matter where you start, you could always rise. She had faced obstacles that seemed insurmountable, but each challenge had only made her stronger. She had turned the pain of her past into the fuel for her future. Her mother had always believed in her, even when Maya didn't believe in herself. And now, with everything she had accomplished, Maya knew that it was time to give back in the most meaningful way she could. She had been working on a new initiative for several years, one that was very close to her heart. It was a project focused on educating children from underprivileged backgrounds, teaching them the power of language and how it could change their lives. Maya knew that language was the key to understanding the world, and she wanted to give every child the opportunity to learn it. She had been in talks with schools and local communities, developing a program that would offer free language courses and provide access to resources for students who might not have had the chance to study otherwise. The project had already begun to take shape, and Maya was determined to see it through. As she stood at the podium at the launch event for the new initiative, she looked out at the audience with a sense of accomplishment and pride. The room was filled with educators, philanthropists, and families, people who believed in her vision and wanted to make a difference. Maya's heart swelled with emotion as she began to speak. "This project is not just about teaching languages," she said, her voice steady but filled with passion. "It's about giving children the tools to shape their own futures. Language is the foundation of communication, and it has the power to connect us across cultures, across borders. We are giving these children the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to create change in their communities. As Maya spoke, she realized that this was what she had been working toward all along. This was the culmination of everything she had done, the research, the speeches, the advocacy. She had used her own journey to inspire others, and now she was helping the next generation take the first steps toward their own. After the event, as Maya walked outside into the cool evening air, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had been that shy girl with a heavy accent, feeling invisible and overlooked. But now, she was a leader, someone whose words and actions had the power to create real change. Maya's phone buzzed, and she saw a message from her mother. "I'm so proud of you, Maya. You've done it." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had always wanted to make her mother proud, and now she had. As she walked through the city, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here, the sacrifices, the struggles, the moments of doubt. But in the end, it had all been worth it. She had proven that determination, hard work, and a belief in herself could lead to incredible things. Maya knew that there would always be more challenges ahead, more obstacles to overcome. But she also knew that she was ready. She had the knowledge, the skills, and the heart to face whatever came her way. And no matter what, she would always remain true to herself and the values that had guided her from the beginning. Maya had not just changed her life, she had changed the world. And as she continued to work toward her next goal, she was more determined than ever to make a lasting impact. Maya's story was not one of simple success. It was a story of resilience, of strength, and of the power of believing in oneself. It was a story that would continue to inspire generations to come. Maya's journey is a powerful example of resilience, determination, and the impact of believing in oneself. From growing up in a modest home as the daughter of a maid to becoming a global leader in language preservation, her story is a shining example of overcoming adversity. Throughout the course of her life, Maya faced challenges that many would have considered insurmountable, but she never gave up. Her journey is a reflection of the struggles and triumphs that so many face, and it serves as an inspiration to those who have ever been told they are not enough. This Black story highlights the importance of perseverance and the belief that anyone can achieve greatness, no matter where they start. As Maya's influence continues to grow, her work and her legacy will inspire future generations to break through barriers, make a difference, and shape their own destinies. From her early struggles with self-doubt to standing in front of world leaders advocating for change, Maya's transformation is a testament to the power of education, community support, and self-belief. Her story is one of personal growth, academic achievement, and using her talents to create a lasting impact. This is one of the many Black stories that continue to motivate people worldwide, proving that with hard work and a clear vision, anyone can rise above their circumstances and make a lasting impact on the world. Maya's story is proof that no matter how difficult the journey may be, one person can indeed change the world. The resilience in her Black story will continue to inspire and encourage others to take the first step towards their own dreams and never stop striving for success.